Hello once again to another wonderful video of the Crosstalk. In this video, I'd like to make a case for Christianity. And how I'm going to make a case for Christianity is by comparing the Islamic doctrine of Fitra with the Christian doctrine of original sin, and by comparing show that the Islamic doctrine of Fitra, which I will define in just a moment, is incompetent when it comes to explaining reality, and the Christian doctrine is superior to the Islamic doctrine of Fitra when explaining reality. So what is the doctrine of Fitra? The doctrine of Fitra is basically a doctrine that deals with human nature. It seeks to, and it attempts to answer the question, are men good or evil from birth? That's what basically the doctrine of Fitra attempts to answer. And so I'm going to look at three specific resources today and then reason with them a little bit, and then we'll take it from there. So the first resource is the Islamic Encyclopedia, which defines the Islamic doctrine of Fitra in this way. It reads, "The linguistic and religious meaning of Fitra is the immutable natural predisposition to the good, innate in every human being from birth, or even from the pre-existent state in which the human soul enters into covenant with God." So now a few things. One, that from birth man is inclined, is attracted toward goodness. Okay, so that's what it's saying. And then second of all, that even not only is man attracted to doing good from birth, but that even before birth, man was in a covenant with God already before being born. Okay. Second resource is a famous commentator of the Quran. He makes a comment on Surah 30 verses 29 to 32, and his name is Ibn Kathir, and he says this: Allah made all of his creation equal. All of them have the sound fitra and are by nature upright. All creation are by nature upright. They are all born with this nature, and there is no disparity among people in this regard. So basically that there is not one person who was born with more uprightness or less uprightness, but everyone is equal in their uprightness. Everyone is born with the same measure of uprightness. Dr. Bilal, a Muslim scholar, says that the fitra is by implication a natural belief in God. So every child from birth is born with a belief in God. But not only that he is born with a natural belief in God, but moreover he is born with a belief in one God. Not a plurality of God, etc., etc., not any funny ideas about God, but is born a monotheistic being. That is what Fitra, from these three specific resources we gather, is. Now, if we look at the definition from reason and just kind of apply this, what has been just said to us, with reality, what do we get? Do we see this doctrine sufficiently displayed in reality, in practicality around us? I would say no. Let me ask this question as an anecdote. Do you lock your doors at night before sleeping? If you do, why? I lock my doors at night because I am wanting to be safe. I want my children and my wife to be safe. I want that security. I want, let me say that again, security. Security from all the evils and sin in this world, from all the harm that can come to my family? Is the doctrine of Fitra reasonable? Does it explain human history? Does it show us, and does it clearly display all the realities that surround us on a daily note? I would say no. I would say that the Islamic doctrine of Fitra fails and is incompetent on many levels when dealing with reality. What reality? I don't need to remind my listeners that the reality of evil in history and in our day currently is that a man, George Floyd, is cold-bloodedly murdered by policemen who were well aware and witnessing what is happening, and he is killed nonetheless. I do not need to remind my listeners, hopefully I do not need to remind, the reality of 9/11, approximately 3,000 people dying. Hopefully I do not need to remind my listeners that there was a time whereby the Nazis caused havoc in the world. Hopefully, my listeners do not require me to remind them of the fact that right through human histories, we have had not one, not 10, not 50, but hundreds of massacres. Hundreds of massacres. Hopefully, my listeners do not require me to pull out the statistics of how many women are raped each day. Hopefully, my listeners do not require me to remind them of the reality of pedophilia, where a father targets his own daughter or son. That is not even the vilest of crimes. I'm sure many of my listeners have more vile crimes to actually bring forth and to tell us of them. At this point, when we look at the doctrine of Fitra, what do we see? I see a desperate attempt to appeal to the human flesh, that no, there is some goodness. And I would say, I don't see that. Not as a Christian, just as a human being looking around me, I don't see that. I really just don't see that. So one of the responses that I had gotten is that, oh, it's environment. It is, a child is born good, an inclination toward good, but it is the environment, it is genetics, it is this, it is that corrupts the child and destroys the thinking, etc. of a child. My response to that would be this. I have a few questions, and that is this. The first human being, Adam, from the Islamic position as well, why did he sin? What environment would you appeal to then? And if he did, why? Why did people continue to commit sin? Where did the environment go wrong? And who was the first one to go wrong? All of these questions become very important to answer when you're looking at this whole environment issue. And then my next question would be this. If our environments are to be blamed, will Allah judge me or my environment? Why would Allah judge me if it is the fault of my parents or my environment or my circumstance that has caused me to commit sin and evil? How am I at fault? How is Hitler at fault? Because he too had his story. He had his story to tell, and his justifications and his reasons as to why he committed mass murders. Why did he do that? He had a reason. Stalin, he had a reason. Everyone has a reason. Everyone then becomes a victim, mere victim, then men are not actively responsible. Men and women are simply victims of their environment. Then Allah has no right to judge me, because then I can turn it around at Allah. I'm a Christian today. Why? Because of my circumstances, apparently. And so I am a Christian who is thoroughly convinced of Christianity and thoroughly convinced against Islam. So surely it is my upbringing, right? Then I have the right to stand before Allah and say to Him, Allah, you cannot judge me because of my environment. It was my environment that convinced me otherwise. And Ahmad Sabur, when appealing to reason, he says that, okay, there may be some people that are good, intellectual, etc., etc., but there are some people who don't want to know the truth. They run away from God. Even they don't want Islam. So deep within them, though they may know the truth, they just reject it, actively reject it. I would say that is very presumptuous. How do you know that I am not simply just convinced against Islam? Because Islam actually doesn't make sense. And look at the doctrine of Fitra. The man is immutably predisposed to good. But then if man is immutably predisposed to good, unchangeably, he is unaffectedly, unhindered, his inclination, attraction toward goodness will never change, then why does it change even by external factors like environment? You see the contradiction right there as well. So this is just my simple, quick examination of the doctrine of Fitra. We will continue looking at this doctrine in relation to eventually we will then compare it with the Christian doctrine of original sin. But I hope that this video will truly inform you of the incompetent view of man that Islam actually has, the Islamic doctrine of Fitra. It is a very weak, a very incompetent, a view that does not explain reality appropriately. It is superstitious and it is idealistic but not realistic. It may desire the best for men, sure, great, I understand that, I applaud at that. But does it actually explain reality? My encouragement, my challenge to you today is I don't even need you to be a great scholar. All I need you to do is look around you. Look within your families. Look into your neighbors' families, your friends, your news every day, and compare all that you see around you with the Islamic doctrine of Fitra. My name is Shamoon, and I'll see you soon.